As a narcissistic person grows old, now the aging process doesn't necessarily suit everybody, and people can struggle for a variety of reasons when it comes to aging. People can also sort of look at a few of these things and think, well, isn't that just a part and parcel of growing old? And that's a part of the problem when we're not willing to look at these things and see where the behaviour can potentially be harmful, not only to us but to those around us, and unwilling to change because, well, that's just what happens. So when it comes to a narcissist, there's a few things that can happen when they grow old. One of the first is they lose that charismatic charm because people become wiser to their games, so people are no longer willing to put up with them. Where they used to be able to charm somebody, people now just feel a bit icky around them, and the narcissist can sense this and gets offended. They become a lot more self-centered. It's a lot more about them and getting their needs met. They're not interested in other people, they're interested in themselves. You might notice with some narcissistic people, you can be watching a program about organ donation and transplants, and you can just sit there and say, oh, if that was my grandson, I'd give them my, and an elderly narcissist would just turn around and went, well, I wouldn't, I need that's mine, because they lack the empathy to care about their own family. So they'll become more self-centered. They become more resentful and bitter. Yes, we can all have things happen in life that create those feelings of resentment and bitterness and frustration and anger, and they're things that we need to deal with, otherwise it escalates. And with a narcissist, because they don't see themselves as the problem, they don't deal with these issues, and it escalates and they become more bitter and resentful. They then, therefore, they begin to complain more often. It's easy to find the negatives in life. There's plenty of things to complain about. However, the more you complain, the more you will find. It's very challenging to find the things to be positive about, and an aging narcissist will complain a lot more often, and nothing you can do for them will be right. They can become more depressed as their looks and their charm begins to fade, as they feel more resentful and more bitter towards the outside world. They can become more depressed, and you can want to be there to support them through, not realizing that they're using this in order to manipulate you. Their control begins to slip because they're finding it more challenging to manipulate people. Their victim plays no longer wash with people. Their guilt trips no longer wash with people, because people have begin to recognise the pattern over the years. People have had enough, and there comes a point when someone has traumatised you that you're just not going to go back anymore. And people can try and guilt trip you, and they're elderly, they were your parent, they were this, that. It doesn't matter. When someone's been abusive towards you, you have every right to walk away and leave them to it. They become more vulnerable to criticism. Nobody really likes criticism. Narcissistic people especially don't like criticism, and the older they get, the more vulnerable and the more snappy they get with it. They might suddenly find a religion. There's various reasons why people find religion in life. There's various reasons why people go to religion. Not all people in religions are bad. Narcissistic people, again, to do with their own self-serving desires, they find religion to sort of believe that will wash them of any sins, and that they will be okay in the afterlife, because after all, now they're a religious person. They become more susceptible to depression due to the fact that a lot of people might begin to walk away from them. A lot of people have had enough of them, and because they're more prone to criticism, because they're looking at the negatives, they become a very negative and toxic person to be around. And they become a lot more rigid on their beliefs, like they weren't rigid enough before, that they were always right. The older they get, the more rigid they're going to become.